Ephesians 1:19 says this, imagine what is the immeasurable greatness of his power towards us who believe, according to the mighty working of his strength. I want you to just reflect on that. Reflect on what kind of power that must be. Reflect on what that would do as Jesus works through his people, as the Holy Spirit empowers his people. Look at Acts chapter 19, verses 18 through 20. Here's what it says. And many who had become believers came confessing and disclosing their practices, while many of those who had practiced magic collected their books and burned them in front of everyone. So they calculated their value and found it to be 50,000 pieces of silver. Now, whenever I read that, it didn't really register to me what that may mean or what that would look like, but I did some calculations and found that the value that it's describing there is between $500,000 and $750,000. Think about that. What it's communicating is that people who came to know Christ realized that they wanted to turn away from their old ways, from the things that they had relied on, from the things that had brought a darkness into their life, and they wanted to turn to Christ. And they wanted to give him their lives, and that he had created light in them, truth in them, beauty in them, so much so that they began to collect up their old remnants of their old life, the things that had held them bound and captive, and they burned those. And it was the value of $500,000 to $750,000 worth of books. Think about that. What God did. He changed their lives. So much so that they knew that they no longer wanted to believe the lie, that they no longer wanted to embrace the lie that had held them captive. It goes on in verse 20 and says, in this way the word of the Lord spread and prevailed. When we're thinking about that today, I am so excited about Easter, as we referenced even in our last Devo. But what I want us to just imagine is that God can powerfully work through his people still today. That he can still use his church to encourage people and encourage them to have their lives changed. And just like these folks, we're getting rid of the lie, regardless of the cost that it may be. Wouldn't it be amazing if God began to do that in our communities? If God began to do that in our families, if God began to do that in our fellowship, if in this community people began to see areas of sin and say, I turn from that. I turn from that which has caused me death, and I turn instead to Christ, whose resurrection power has become alive in me. Listen, I'm encouraging you to invite people to come and understand the resurrection power of Jesus this coming year at Easter. But it's not just so that you invite a friend. It's so that we can see the love of God move through family and friendship and relationships in this community, that he may be honored in all of our lives, setting us free for his glory to accomplish his will. It's immeasurable power that is at work by his mighty power. Go and live for his glory today.